Hi, welcome to Community Homeworks workshop this evening. We're glad that you're joining us. My name is Tiana Harrison and I'm the Education Coordinator at Community Homeworks. If you're watching this live, please comment to let us know where you're tuning in from. Also, if you would like to join in the discussion or ask a question, please put that in the comments as well. If you're watching this after the live broadcast, we're still happy you're here. And you can still ask questions in the comments section, but it might take a little longer for us to respond. Community Homeworks is a nonprofit organization with a mission to empower homeowners to maintain safe, sustainable, and dignified homes. We get our funding from grants, gifts, and donations. So if you find value in this workshop tonight, we encourage you to donate on our website, communityhomeworks.org. Tonight's workshop is entitled Summer Maintenance Tips and Tricks, and we have a few instructors because we're going to do it in a round-robin style. And so I'm going to introduce them, and they're going to tell us a little bit about themselves, and we look forward to, when they're done, hearing a little bit more about summer maintenance tips and tricks. The first instructor that we have is Ian. And Ian, I was wondering if you could introduce yourself and say what your area of expertise is or what you enjoy teaching when it comes to the workshops.
Thanks, Tiana. My name is Ian Stamp. I'm a carpenter and also a home builder here in Kalamazoo. I work at Western Michigan University doing a lot of maintenance. And so, yeah, it's a lot of fun. And I don't know, I guess I like, kind of sharing knowledge with people and trying to help people. So I don't know, enjoy it. So
thank you. And thank you so much for all that you do for us.
thank
Next,
you.
we have Mr. Harry. And Harry, if you don't mind introducing yourself and telling us what your favorite workshops to teach or instruct.
Well, I somehow or another, I ended up falling into teaching most of the electric classes when we were in person, and it's one of the things I enjoy. So that's what we did. My background is basically in residential construction. I'm licensed. I taught residential construction at high school and college level for many years. And actually, I had a chance to work as the general contractor for Habitat for Humanity on the east side of the state in western Wayne County. We've only been here on this side of the state about a little over 5 years.
Thank you so much. And we welcome to this side of the state, and we hope that you are enjoying yourself over here. Next, we will have Mr. Lee. Mr. Lee, if you can tell us a little bit about yourself and what are some of the workshops that you enjoy teaching?
Well, so most of my experience has been over, through my need, I guess is probably the best way to put it. Worked with Habitat for Humanity close to 23 years in the building. And yeah, I mean, teaching classes is it's something that appeals to me about it, and I want people to be able to not be taken for a ride in a sense. So, spread the knowledge around. That's the way I learn. So it's the way other people learn too. So.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And finally, we have instructor Gary. Gary, if you could come on and introduce yourself and let us know what are some of your favorite workshops that you've instructed for us.
Well, so far the only thing I've instructed is the water heater class. So we always show people all the details of a water heater and how to clean a tankless water heater while we're there. So that's my part. I do some building inspection for Oshmo and Cooper Townships, and my background was maintaining not Western, but another small college 100 miles south, and did 29 years there in electrical, plumbing, steam, not just HVAC, but steam and chilled water and all these fun things. So, but yes, also the interest in making sure people know what they're paying for when they get somebody in. Yeah.
Thank you so much. We are really, really grateful for all of the expertise that you guys bring to Community Homeworks. And as we get back into person and start to have more and more workshops, if you do have an interest in facilitating a workshop, or if you have an idea about a new workshop that you would like to see us present, please do not hesitate to reach out to me so that I can make sure that we are utilizing your talents here at Community Homeworks. So at this time, I'm going to turn it back over to Jason so that he can get us up and moving as we talk about summer maintenance tips and tricks.
All right, thanks, Tiana. I also wanted to welcome Julie. I'm sorry, Julie, you were down below the screen, so I was like, oh, wait, there's somebody else down there. So sorry we missed that. Julie, would you be willing to introduce yourself and say a little bit about your background? And oops, we lost Julie. We had Julie. What just happened? It says that her device is not connected. Okay. Hopefully she will be back. So I just wanted to get started with round robin type stuff. And if you, as instructors, have things to add when one person is talking about something, that's fine. We can all talk. We don't want to talk over each other, but we can all talk together. Ian, do you have something that is an important thing that you usually take care of in the summer?
One thing that I think of is making sure all of your downspouts and gutters are clean. Usually in the summer, you always have like a lot of things kind of come down, and with storms and whatnot, they clog up your gutters, and then, in turn, kind of clog up your downspouts, and maybe they'll pop off, and then now you've got water coming into your basement. So I like to make sure that those are nice and clear, water's coming out, and you get the water away from the foundation. So that's one I always try to be mindful of.
Do you have any tips for cleaning out gutters or for keeping them clean?
I don't. I mean, I usually do it off of a ladder, and have a bucket, and then sometimes run a hose through, but to kind of clear all the gunk away. But that's about it. So.
Okay. Anybody else have something that they do to help keep the gutters clean or to clean them out?
Well, I have something that kind of relates to the gutters. If you have valleys in your roof, and you have a lot of debris, leaves, or pine needles, that sort of thing, getting that out of that area so that it doesn't degrade your shingles.
Can you tell us a little bit more? What's a valley? How do we know if we have a valley on our roof?
Right? So I don't know if this will show up, but a valley. And I can't.
If you have, so it's basically a space where two different roofs come together at different angles.
Right. And if you get pine needles or leaves or whatever, I've seen it where that degrades not only the shingles, it can start messing up the decking underneath.
Okay. So how do we get that stuff cleaned out? Do you have to climb up on your roof to do that, or hire somebody to do it?
Well, I guess it depends on what kind of house you have. If you have a ranch style house, I'm sure you could probably, if you have something like a snow rake or something along that line, you could very gently get it cleaned out. If you do have to get up on your roof, I won't say what I've done in the past to be able to clean those out. It has to do with the rope and rappelling down, but that's scary. But yeah, you can usually
It's funny
get it.
because you mentioned that was one of my jobs this morning, because we have a lot of oak trees in our area, and they got those little flowery ugly things that come down. we have gutter guards,
Yeah.
and they do a pretty nice job. But they kept that crud out of the gutters, but it's on top of the. So I have a ranch, but I also have a ranch that's built into a hill. The front of the house is fine. I just used a hose on jet and sprayed them all off. Cleaned out the valleys, just like you were saying, and everything's running pretty good. As far as the back of the house, it's almost 2.5 stories tall. I don't know what's up there, and I'm not going to find out. Because at my age, I'm not climbing up there.
Yeah. Yep, and that's I mean, I would imagine that if it's bad, you'd probably want to hire somebody that can get up there. But back to if you have a 2-story house and you're getting some roof work done, have anchor points put in, well, you have something to clip off to.
So it's pretty dangerous getting up there yourself, though, is what you're saying, Lee.
Yeah, I would say.
All right. Anybody else have anything to add about gutters and downspouts, or about getting leaves out of your roof, or anything like that?
All I know is that when we first moved in this house, the people who didn't maintain it very well had one of the valleys was full of sticks and dirt and crud, and I climbed up there. In fact, that's probably the last time I climbed up on the roof. Shoveled that off. I really don't like getting on a roof, and I really don't like having to get back on the ladder. It's one of those things you're probably best finding a handyman that is willing to go up and do that.
Moss is another one too. Heavy moss buildup on the shingles is a bad one.
So what do you do for that?
There's stuff out there that you can spray on it. I know. It'll clear it off. Sometimes they can do like a low pressure power wash or something along that line, but you have to be careful. Scrape it.
I can remember the name of the product I got. It's
Wet and Forget.
That's it. Yes, and that has done a nice job with the moss on our roof. I know that there's some zinc, the materials that you can put on the roof. Actually, we just had our house re-roofed, and the newer shingles have some anti-moss materials put into them.
Oh.
Yeah, that's nice.
Okay. One of you mentioned gutter guards earlier. What are gutter guards, and how do you know if you need them, or how would you know if they would be beneficial for you?
There's a lot of gutter guards on the market, and they're basically a screen or some sort of a filter that keeps material out of the gutters. In this house, we have it's kind of a metal with a lot of perforations in it. That pretty much did a job here. There's a corner of the house that still has a screen-like material, and that's where I had the biggest buildup of this, what I like to call oak schmutz. And that was where we had a real problem, because it was at the end of a valley. And last night we had a lot of water come down, go over top of the gush guard, and wash out a little bit in the rose garden. At our other house, we had a really nice system. It's quite costly, though. It has like a surgical screen on it, but we had a lot of pine trees. So even the gutter guards don't do very well with pine needles. This one was a real screen, and it did a fine job for us.
Yeah, I've seen that where it builds up on the top of some kind of a guard system and degrades the ends, of the shingles. So yeah, even if you have one of those, you have to get that stuff off. So
Good point. Again, Julie, I wanted to welcome you. I'm sorry we were having some trouble in the beginning. Can you introduce yourself and talk a little bit about what you do, or what your interests are in our workshops?
Sure. I don't know why this program doesn't think my computer has a microphone, so I have a strange problem when I try to get on, and apparently it only likes this headset. So my name is Julie. I'm generally kind of a handy person. I don't have a lot of formal training, as it were, in home repair. But I've learned a lot from various people over time. I did spend a few years working at Gales True Value doing the screen and windows there. So most of the classes I've taught are on screens and windows, but I have a pretty good knowledge of, basic home maintenance, the kind of things that you would feel comfortable doing at home for the most part, I think, are probably in my wheelhouse. And I've also done some caulking classes, and I really enjoy teaching people in the classes because it's really important to, be able to do stuff yourself. It's much cheaper, like other people have mentioned, if you can do it yourself. And it's just good to know, and it lets you feel empowered to take care of your house. So that's what I like about it.
Awesome. Do you clean out your gutters, or do you find someone else to clean out your gutters?
So the true story is that we still need to clean out our gutters. We have a 2-story house, and it does require an extension ladder, which we have, so we can do it ourselves. But I can't say we've done it super recently, so our bad. But we do have to get up there yet this summer. So that particular project is on our list, in fact.
Great.
And don't forget about your garage. I want to mention that because garages may or may not be attached to the house. And if you have a garage, like ours is in not a great location. It's totally under a tree. So we've got those moss issues. We've got branches sitting on it all the time. And that one's pretty easy to get up on, and just you can just take if you're have good balance and you're in reasonably good shape, you can, even if you don't get all the way on the roof, you can get up on a ladder and use a push broom or something like that to kind of drag the stuff off, and a hose and that wet and forget stuff will do a really good job on the moss as well. So don't forget your garage.
Great. Thank you very much for that tip. Anybody want to add anything else about roofs or gutters and downspouts? Because those are both, especially after we had rain last night, those are both things that are fresh in our minds. Oh, Lee has something else.
I'm going to add tree limbs that are, brushing up against your shingles and that sort of stuff. That's a good time to get them off, as long as the tree can be pruned in the summer. So, like if you have an oak tree or something banging up against your shingles, you don't want to prune it in the summer. So, you don't want things touching your roof, really.
So why don't you want to prune your oak trees this time of year?
Oak wilt.
Tell us more.
Say that again.
Tell us more.
Oh, oak wilt. It's a moth that transmits. It's the bacteria, I'm pretty sure. Don't quote me on that one. But they're attracted to the sap, and it'll kill off a mature oak tree in, literally a month. So, okay. And it is around here in Kalamazoo. So, oak trees need to be pruned in the winter. So,
right. I didn't know that.
All right. Harry, what's something else you do to your house this time of year?
Well, I kind of took a different path, and I decided I was going to talk a little bit about basically your grills.
Okay.
By all means, I don't care if you're using a gas, if you're using a charcoal, if you're using electric, make sure that grill is clean. The National Fire Protection Agency says that there's about 30% of all residential fires starting from an unclean grill.
Yep.
I don't know. I've been with the fire department here in Oshima for a while, and we've only had one in the last 4 years that was caused by a grill. So maybe we're lucky, but in any event, it does happen. So I'm just going to do a couple little things, maybe a couple tips that people can think about, and we'll go from there. Oh, Gary's going to go out and cook us something. Okay.
You're showing us the melted siding. I like that.
Yeah.
And quite frankly, that's a good segue into this, Gary, because the only fire that I remember being on with the department was somebody grilling next to their garage, inside their garage, as a matter of fact. I'd like to hope that they had the door open when they were doing that, but I'm not 100% sure. But I'm sure they were, because we didn't find them passed out on the floor. In fact, that's a good point too, because if you're grilling, not inside, definitely because of the CO that causes problems. And the other thing is just what Gary was showing, keeping your grill safe from a house. It's so easy to bubble up the vinyl siding, even scorch aluminum siding. I'm going to go back 20, 30 years. One of our neighbors was grilling and actually started the back of his house smoldering, and the fire department had to come out. So at least 10 feet away, or some sort of a shield. In fact, I got to tell you, I'm even guilty of that. I was a little close to the house when I first set up, and started notice a little deflection, and actually ended up having to move the grill.
I want to add something to that also, Gary. Think about your soffit also. You know, I've seen it where grills are set up and, you know, it's far enough away from the house or something along that line, but it might be an overhang or something along that line, and it melts the soffit.
Well, to tell you the truth, I can tell you how hot something can get. So a long story that I'm going to keep very short. I insisted we have a goose at Christmas one year. My wife says, "You're not putting that greasy thing in my oven." So I put it on the grill. You got to know what goose fat does on a grill. It not only started on fire, it melted the aluminum casting on the grill. Wow.
Wow.
So that's another thing. I wasn't watching it like I should have been. So when you're grilling, stay there and keep an eye on things when you're doing it. And another thing is, drink responsibly if you're grilling. You know, there's an old joke that went around this time of year. There's nothing that says America more than giving kids a burning stick of that's about 4,000 degrees and being supervised by adults who've been drinking all day. So in other words, keep your head about you. Don't leave it. Of course, don't even leave an oven or stove when you're cooking at home.
Think about where it's on also. Wood deck, that sort of stuff. Thinking about where it's at on a wood deck, that sort of thing also is a big one.
I've had issues with that too. But in other words, yeah, those are just some of the basic grilling things. I'll get in later on if we have time about dealing with charcoal or gas grills or whatever. But I just thought I would bring up some of those things about making sure that grill is clean, because that's where the flare-ups happen. And once they flare up, you can pour water on them. It might work, or it might make it worse.
Anybody else have some hints about making sure that you don't get flare-ups on your grill, or don't burn your house down while you're grilling?
Well,
Keep an eye on it.
the turkey fryer is the most dangerous thing. Of course, it's more often around Thanksgiving, but I do know of a house that they had the turkey fryer in the garage at Thanksgiving time and burned the whole thing down. It's entirely possible to do.
Grease fires go very fast. We've been fortunate here in Oshno. We haven't had a lot of fires, even from grills or anything. We've been, I think, in the last 4 years that I've been with them.
Long John Silver's about 3 or 4 months ago, but that's, commercial, and they had a major grease fire.
Actually, Long John Silver's has had probably 3 or 4 since I've been here.
It's a tradition.
Get a full over there. Yeah, I mean, and the grease fires are very, very nasty. They're as bad as you can get. I mean, for a firefighter, they know how to deal with it, but people tend to just grab anything, try and douse it with water, and it just spreads it terrible.
have that fire extinguisher somewhere where you can get it. Think about it for your grill too.
How often should you change?
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Tiana.
No, I was. How often should you change your fire extinguisher?
Often should you change your fire extinguisher?
Yeah.
How
How
often
often
should
should
they-
you replace it?
How
I'm
often
sorry.
should you replace your fire extinguisher?
A lot of times there's a gauge on there.
Remember what it is? Somebody might have. They might even say it on the extinguisher. Now, the one I have is, I hate to say it, probably 20 years old or better, but it's still holding pressure because there is a pressure gauge on it. And every so often, I pick it up and I turn it over a few times, and you can still feel the powder moving. So I'm sure that it's good. And if not, well, the buddies at the Osmo Fire Department are going to come out and say hello to me too.
I think most consumer grade ones do have a date on them, and they typically have a dial as well. So it's a good idea to check them, make sure that date is current. If you have a more professional version, you can get them tested and recharged. But the sort of typical like homeowner ones that you put up under your sink, I think they usually have a date on them, and they're not considered serviceable.
And where?
Okay.
Good old gauge.
Yeah, mine has the same kind of. Virtually, I have the same one you do.
Yeah.
You know, I shouldn't say this, but if you got the pressure and if you flip it over and you can feel the powder moving, granted, you probably should replace it with the date that's on it, but anything's better than nothing. But don't depend on it.
Yeah. And know where it's at.
And accessible.
Right.
Thank you.
I always like mine top of the stairs because you don't pile stuff in there. You know, you down to the basement or something along that line. So.
We had a couple comments come in that I wanted to share in relationship to roofing and gutters. Lynn Stevens says that most houses in Vine neighborhood don't have gutters, and that's an interesting observation because the city of Kalamazoo, if you have gutters and they're all plugged up, or if they are not functional, like falling off your house or that kind of thing, you can actually get cited for that. But if your house doesn't have any gutters at all, you can't get cited for not having gutters. So it's a little bit of a strange place to be. But I do know that a lot of the older houses in Vine neighborhood and in Stewart and some places like that don't have gutters at all. And
Gutters at
Lynn
one
also.
time.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Let's go with your question. That's better than that. Better than what I had to say.
Lynn also said that she's an MSU Extension Master Gardener, and they're urged to do absolutely nothing to oak trees between April and November because of oak wilt disease. All members of the red oak branch of the oak family are susceptible, and once they get it, they die. So I appreciate you bringing that up, Lee. And Lynn, I appreciate you giving us some more information on that, so thank you very much. Harry, did you have something else you wanted to say about that?
Well, I know that at one point we used to talk about gutters just being nothing more than a maintenance item. They get plugged up, you got to work on them. The other way of looking at it, and this is the what I more subscribe to, is the gutters lead to a downspout. The downspout takes the moisture of the water well away from your foundation. And a house without gutters is dropping all the rainwater near the foundation. That's where you get dampness, water leaks, anything else that deals with moisture. And what was it? The old Ask the Handyman over on the east side of the state used to always say, water always wins. If you don't believe that, look at the Grand Canyon.
Yeah.
We've got another question that just came in. Tim Tinney wants to know, can you put gutters on a mobile home trailer? And I don't know that. Is anyone familiar with mobile homes and whether you can put gutters on them?
I've seen gutters. They're a type of gutter before on trailers. They're usually kind of retrofitted. I think sometimes it has to do with, if you've had a certain type of roof over put on it type thing. And I know they can have them integrated in sometimes. But
Great. Thank you for the question,
That
Tim.
roof does have some pitch to it, so there'd be a place for the water to go. I would be more, as a builder, I would be more concerned about, is there something that you can actually attach the gutter to on a mobile home?
yeah, a lot of times what I've seen is you have the roof overhang, and then that gutter attaches to that metal overhang.
Okay.
So, you know, do they work great? Don't know, but something better than nothing.
Right. And I guess with a mobile home, it's probably beneficial also. Usually there's no basement under a mobile home, and so you're not going to have water running back into the basement, which is often a problem with the with some of the other homes.
But you still have some sort of a crawl space under there.
Right.
A lot of the
Right.
mechanical runs underneath that part of the home too.
Right.
Yeah, and living in a trailer before when we were younger, yeah, I mean, I've seen what moisture, just standing water and whatnot underneath the trailer can do. It tears things up.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not a fun place to be.
All right. Lee, do you have something you'd like to share on your list?
Yeah, I'm going to say deck inspection. So if you have a deck, especially if you have a second story deck, doing those inspections on that. And what I'm talking about more specifically is, like my deck is, 20 years plus. The screws that I've used to put it down back then are, totally disintegrated. So I have to go through and replace those screws. I don't have handrails or guard or spindles or anything like that. But yep, just like that, they need to make sure that, they can deal with basically about 200 pounds of pressure pushing up against them, that the posts aren't rotted. If it's a second story deck, a close look at the deck boards, the joist hangers. If you have, joist hangers up against your rim board, that they're actually good and secured, not disintegrated. The fastening devices, the screws, the nails, all that sort of stuff. There was a period of time where they changed the, how the pressure treated deck boards, what chemicals are in them. And that overlap is what worries me, because they had to change some of the stuff of how they had to do things. And certain things don't work on new pressure treated like it used to. So those inspections, to me, are real important.
There's been a lot of code changes in the last 10, 15 years about decks. One of the things you were talking about is the newer pressure-treated lumbers, which have a tremendous amount of copper in them.
Yep.
We had to do away with a lot of the arsenic, which was in the older ones, to keep the insects down, so they use copper. You take the copper, moisture, a different metal, like on the screw or a bolt or whatever's putting it together, and they broke down very quickly. So you have to use particular ones on that. A lot of things were going on with decks over many years as people basically put up something on the back of their house. And what we were finding, as you were mentioning, Lee, is the second story decks. There were a lot of injuries because you'd get a deck out that someone would build that did not have anywhere near the holding capacity in the 10 to 20 psi range, and people would have a big party out there, and of course a little music, a little dancing, a little libations, and all of a sudden they're falling 2 stories down to the ground and getting hurt pretty bad. The Michigan codes have really cracked down on decks, and it's a good thing.
It is.
Respect.
It worries me about the, I've even seen professional builders, sometimes their work is questionable, it's, they're using screws as structural, screws that aren't a structural screw as a structural screw. And it scares me to some of the stuff that I've seen over the years.
Well, I look at the decks in our neighborhood, and most of them are built with 4x4s for their posts. And we're talking 2-story because we're built into a hill kind of thing. I had mine built in the last 4 years, and it all had to be 6x6s. They all had to be rather than saddled on, which is where you take the two beams and put them across the board and run a bolt through them. Now they have to notch it and inlet it. It has to be secured more securely into the home. Uh, and if you happen to have an older home that doesn't have a lot of that, take a good look at it and either yourself or hire somebody to secure it into the house, because most cases the decks will pull away from the house and that's where they fall.
Yep. Yeah, even something as simple as, just someone walking on the deck, it could be structurally fine, but you could have a board popping up, all of a sudden you got a lawsuit. Trip over it, step on a screw or a nail or whatever, So
Who would somebody call if they wanted to have their deck inspected? Who would do that sort of an inspection?
Well, I don't think that a community inspector would come out unless it's new construction.
Right.
We'd call them and ask them questions about it. Probably would have to call a home inspector that typically does real estate.
Just because I have a feeling most homeowners are not going to know, is that fastener the right fastener for that location?
Right.
Or is this going to be strong enough for this, holding up this deck that I plan to have a party on next week or whatever?
I would say again, look at a home inspector. The other thing is do some research. You can go ahead and you can go to libraries, you can go online, and they will tell you some of the things that are needed, and they're pretty good at explaining things.
Yeah. One of the things that I've noticed, I just did this in my daughter's deck. She had the typical deck boards, and they were the thicker deck boards, but they don't last. And we went, I said, we need to replace this deck, just the deck board. Went to the store, and treated dimensional lumber was cheaper than the deck boards. So we just switched it over to dimensional lumber instead. So sometimes that's the case. So
Okay. Anybody else want to add anything about decks or deck maintenance? How often should you stain your deck, or is staining your deck an important thing to do, or how do you know whether it's time to stain?
I can show you mine. It's definitely
look
time.
at our deck.
Well, I can tell you the deck that I had on our house over on the east side was stained once, and we were in that house 32 years. The deck was about 30 years old.
I think a lot of it has.
I did have to replace several of the boards. The deck we just had built here 4 or 5 years ago, I've stained it twice now, just because there are spots, particularly where the sun was hitting it. As to whether it's important to stain a deck or seal a deck, in most cases, yes, you do it for appearance. It helps hold the fibers of the wood together. But it does. Once you stain it, you're going to be staining it every third year or so, and that's just something you have to do. On the other side of the coin, if you don't stain it with pressure treated lumber, particularly those deck boards, because they're usually pretty well treated, you can plan on starting to see some splinters and some cracks and chips within the first 5 to 10 years, and replacement shortly thereafter.
UV damage is usually the biggest issue that I see.
And that's where I have my trouble with my staining. It's where the sun hits the most. So I'll probably end up hitting it again in the fall. I hit it this spring, but I'll hit it again in the fall.
We've used Thompson's water seal a couple of years. What's your opinion of that? I'm not totally impressed.
One of the things I found about Thompson's water seal in some of my research is that it does have a lot of paraffin with it. And I know people who used it in our other neighborhood, and because of the paraffin that's in it, now this is what I've read, but whatever the case is, it never really hardened up, if you will, or cured. And so environmental crud, if you will, dirt, rain, whatever, got on it, and people would start tracking through their house, and they had a white carpeting, and it left marks. So, as what Gary was asking about Thompson's, I'm not here to buy or sell anything, but I'd never use it. At least not on a deck. Maybe on a tent.
I've always gone with the oil base. That's, in my personal opinion, to me that's best. As long as it's rated for a deck and it has good, UV protection, great.
I'm gonna go with that too.
Gary got kicked off just for a minute. So, Gary, I wanted to sum up what Harry just said. He said that Thompson's might be good for using on a tent, but he doesn't recommend it for a deck.
On a tent.
On a tent,
Okay.
right.
Okay, I can see that.
We're going to be getting an email from Thompson's going, "Hey,
We sure will be. We sure will
that's
be.
okay. I mean, but that's my opinion. When I had a cotton tent, a canvas tent, I used a lot of water sealers, and I'll use it. But again, my opinion is I'd stay away from it. And you want to
Right.
forward those emails to me? That's fine. I'll answer them.
All right. Gary, do you have something you'd like to share? A hint for the summer?
Well, it's probably been covered in HVAC class, but there's a time to clean the condensing unit outside.
Okay.
And it's traditionally, I would try to wait until after the cottonwood season or at the end of the cottonwood season. And most homeowners could do a fair job of it just by shutting the power off and somewhat gently, using garden hose to go through all the pin tubes on the condensing unit.
Okay, so you're talking about the outside air conditioning unit, if you have central air on your house, to get the dust and so on.
To move up. I have to move upstairs because I'm carrying something.
So you're talking about the condensing unit on the air conditioner when it gets plugged up with debris, and I know we have trouble with that on one of ours here at Community Homeworks. The sycamore fluff gets stuck in there, but I also know that cottonwood does the same thing. So Gary's recommending spraying that out gently with a garden hose. Anybody else have a hint for that?
Well, in our
Or something they want to
particular
add?
home right here, we have a lot of growth around our condensing unit. Some of it's good, some of it's not so good. But in any event, it's a lot of vining things, and they start want to strangle out the condensing unit. So I take that off. Another important thing, and again, you don't know when this unit's going to be put in place, what the ordinances are going to say about where you can place it, but if at all possible, place it in a shaded area, not wherever there are branches or bushes close to it, but at least shading it, because the shading it will also help cut the cost of your air conditioning.
If you have a window air conditioner, do you need to spray the fins out on that as well, or isn't that a big deal?
No, I would say it's just as important to do it there. The window air conditioner is nothing more than a small condenser and evaporator. The evaporator is the part that's in the furnace. It's just one unit that's contained in a small area, so it does the same thing. Now we got our heating guy here. He can talk a little bit more about it.
Sorry about that.
No problem.
Yeah, it's the outdoor unit that tends to get dirty, and the indoor unit's protected by the air filter that,
Right.
Of course, by May or so, I hope you got that replaced. And for the most part, you can leave the inside alone other than that. But the outdoors, shut the power down, gently run the garden hose over. If you bend over the first bin, you know you've gotten too forceful with it. And there are cleaner products for cleaning the bin.
And you would recommend those cleaning products as well?
Yeah.
Okay.
Although at least a garden hose rinse, but the cleaning products can be good too. If you really feel confident in what you're doing, you can tear the whole thing apart and clean it from the inside too. But that's not for everybody. That's just not for everybody to try. So
Right.
that really calls for some classroom.
That's something Gary would do, but most of the rest of us would not.
Well, and at my daughter's house, I'd let it go 15 years, and when I did finally tear it all apart, it was a little carpet in there. Yeah, it was totally. Yeah, so there are things that you let go too long.
Right.
Gary, this is getting off a little bit. Your recommendations on covering the condenser over the winter months.
No, I've never recommended that. I have never recommended that. Now, I know people that do it, and they are responsible and have their wits about them and take it off before they start it in the spring, because if you don't, you can cause catastrophic failure.
Well, I guess I was referring more to condensation that causes over the winter months.
Oh, few people would get it sealed so tight that you'd have much of that. No, I just worry about the thing being covered up when it starts in spring.
Okay.
And I don't. Yeah, I can't think that it extends the life much, if any, to cover it. So, and this is just me, but I don't see any great purpose in doing that. Well, and then on my campus, I suppose we had probably 40 of them that we did not cover. I never, in all the years I've had one, covered it.
Okay, we agree on that. I was just wanted to get an expert's opinion.
Anybody else want to comment?
I do. I'll add something.
People that do it dutifully every year, and it probably keeps the paint job looking nicer.
Yeah, I want to add something to that as far as summertime, talking about air conditioning, is if you have air conditioning or not, keeping your indoor humidity levels in check. And, it's basically you want it between 30 to 50 or 60%, depending on who you talk to. Over that 50 to 60%, you start getting indoor issues, mold, mildew, a lot of problems that, some show up, but some don't. What's going on inside your walls, sort of thing. And the humidity levels can tear a house up. So running a dehumidifier if you don't have, central air or something along that line. Getting a hydrometer in there to be able to know what that humidity level is, and try to keep that in check as much as possible.
We do run the dehumidifier all summer long, and we measure it, and keep an eye. Every time you go to the basement for a beer, take a glance, and it's 52% humidity. Okay, we're good.
Well, and that's like my thermostat will say what the humidity level is in the house, and it's nice. With this particular one, it's hooked up to my phone, so I know when somebody takes a shower in the house, because it'll send me an alert. So
the humidity level went up, not that somebody's taking a shower.
Hey, it could be telling you somebody's taking a shower. You never know.
All right, great. Julie, do you have something you'd like to share with us?
was talking about this with Ian earlier because I was trying to think of things that were helpful, and there were sort of two things that I guess translate to both summer and winter. So I think they're particularly important, and that's if you're trying to keep your house cool, think of all the things that you would do to keep your house warm in the winter. All those same things are going to help you keep it cool in the summer. So if you've got places that are, if you're running AC and you've got places that are really drafty, you know, get out the draft dog you use in the winter and put it under the door, things like that. Anything you would do that would help you stay a little warmer in the winter can help you stay a little bit cooler in the summer if you're running air conditioning. And we talked a lot about whole house air conditioners, but we didn't really talk about window air conditioners, which are a lot more common, I think, in some of the older neighborhoods. On window air conditioners, there's typically a built-in screen. Make sure you're pulling that screen out and cleaning it really well. Give it a really good vacuum regularly so that that unit doesn't have to work as hard, and that will keep your bills down a little bit better. It might keep you a little bit cooler as well. Be on the lookout for water coming into the house. If you've got a window air conditioner running constantly, they should be tilted slightly out so all the condensate that they're making is going out of the house. You should be careful to look for water, you know, at least weekly, like around, especially if it's been running a lot. You know, look for water right around the window or on the floor, because that can be a real problem if you've been running an air conditioner. So the other thing I wanted to touch on is if you've had ice dams in the winter, like big icicles hanging off your house that were causing problems and again can cause water infiltration, now is the time to be thinking about that problem, because that can be solved in a few different ways. But one of them is putting like warming wires up on the edge of your house, and those will keep those big ice dams from forming. And this is a much nicer time to be out there measuring to figure out how much of that cord you need. And if you put it up in late summer, it's going to be a lot better than when we get that mid-October snowstorm and then it's cold and frozen, because those things only work if you put them up before we get the freezing weather. So it's really actually a good thing to think about the summer is what's your plan for taking care of the house in the winter.
Yeah,
Great. Thank you very much for that. What did you want to say, Lee?
Oh, I said, yeah, she's right. You know, those things are not designed to melt the ice dam once it's there. Once it's there, you have other issues. So, yeah, sure.
All right. Tiana, did you have a question or a comment?
I do. I have a couple of questions. In relation to Julie, can you speak a little bit more about where you can get the cooling or the heating wires from? And then I do have a question that kind of goes back to downspouts and gutters, and that is, how do you replace missing pieces of the gutter, or how do you know if those pieces need to be replaced? And also, how do you know how far out you should extend those from the house? So I'm sorry that we have to go back a little bit, but I didn't get a chance to ask when we were speaking on those.
No problem. So you could go to any of the box stores or the local hardware stores for those warming cables. Although I would caution you that like some of the smaller stores may have like put them away for the summer. So you may like give them a call and say, hey, I've been thinking about these. When are you going to start having them in stock on the shelf? That could be helpful for you. But typically everywhere will sell them. You're going to be able to find online sellers. You're going to be able to walk into any of the box stores and buy them. But they may not have them on the shelf right this minute. So it's a good time to prep for it. But you might not be able to get your hands on them till a little bit more toward fall. So that is consideration. And thanks for bringing that up, because it's a really good point.
One of the things I would definitely say is check the quality of those wires that you're putting out. You know, the old saying is you get what you pay for. Well, if you're going to put something that's going to be heating on top of your house, you definitely don't want something that's going to heat it too much and cause a fire.
I want to chime in on that also. A lot of those heat tapes are not meant to touch each other. And technically they're not supposed to be run off extension cords. So reading your instructions is very important.
And then Ian, I don't know if you wanted to talk about the gutters and downspouts. I understand enough about downspouts. Get them the heck away from the house. But
Yeah.
I think you probably have some more information on the rest of that than I do.
Yeah, it's really just a kind of a rule of thumb. You know, like ideally you want to get water as far away from your foundation as you can. I don't know if there's like a standard as far as like, you know, it's got to be minimum amount, but
Code,
yeah,
I think,
the
says
farther you
something
can get
about
it,
dropping 1 inch in every 12 feet, and that may even be a little more than that. You want to get a slope away from your house with the soil.
absolutely.
In my opinion, as far as getting the moisture away from the roof, 10, 12, 30 feet's better. Just get it away from that foundation as much as you can. 3 feet minimum.
I think Tiana's other question was how do you replace, or how do you know when it's time to replace a piece of gutter? And we do have a gutter and downspout class that we offer as well, that I think we'll probably be offering in the next month or two. So we could do that. I think I need to look back, but I think we also have done it on YouTube as well. So I think we have a virtual copy of it. But it talks a little bit about how to replace different pieces of your gutter and how to reattach and some things like that. Anybody else want to chime in? Just give something short about how to know when it's time to replace gutter or to repair something there.
Not attach your house anymore. It's time to replace it.
It's leaking water somewhere other than the
it sounds a
downspout.
little sarcastic, but that's basically it. I mean, if it's not working, it's time to replace it. And,
Busted.
you know, you can do it yourself. There's a lot of do-it-yourselves out there, but, well, I'll tell you what. 40 years ago, I'd have done it myself. Last year, I had it done.
And
All
nowadays
right.
too, you can have the seamless ones where they can pull up the truck and do 70 feet of gutter if you want, without any joints in it. So there's a lot
And
to
if
be
you
said
can,
about
if you
hiring
can
that
swing
out.
that, that's absolutely the best way to
Right.
go, because the less seams, the better. That's just it. I mean, gutters are another maintenance item, but water coming off the roof, it just puts moisture right next to your house. As I said earlier, water always wins, and it will.
All right, great. We're almost out of time. Does anyone have something else real pressing that they didn't get to share that they'd like to share?
Oh, I'll add something.
Okay, go for it, Lee.
Think about your play equipment. As far as those wooden structures. As far as what the kids will go crawling all over. Take a look at the lumber, just as you would with the deck. If there's rails, if there's metal pieces, then rust, plastic pieces that can degrade with UV, protruding nails, screws, that sort of stuff. If they have ropes, make sure the ropes are, can hold, especially if you bought it used in the first place and it's been sitting back there for who knows how long, beating, with the sun beating down on it. So don't forget about those if you have those.
Well, I have a lot I could say about grilling safety, but that's a whole nother story. And I'll tell you, if we started in on that, I'd be getting the look from my wife over here who's got dinner already. So, that may be a class in itself sometime.
Yeah, maybe we'll need to offer a class on grilling safety or on fire safety in the summer or something like that, Harry. How does that sound?
Fire safety all year long. Remember, I'm still with the fire
Right.
department over here in Oshkosh.
Right, but I think more of us are doing outside fires this time of year than we do in the wintertime. So
But we grill in the wintertime too.
We grill all year
Okay.
long. I mean, that's the way it goes. It's just the way it is. But forget the grilling. Anytime you want to get into that, if you want to do a class on grilling safety, fine. But no, we don't have time for that now.
Okay. I wanted to thank you once again for joining us tonight. It was a great class. We have a lot of. I know we could go for another 2 or 3 hours if we needed to, but we don't have that attention span, and neither do most of our viewers. So we'll not put everyone through that. And I wanted to thank, in addition to our instructors, thank Tiana for being here tonight. Next week we're going to be doing a class on building your own rain barrel, so that gets into gutters and downspouts a little as well. So if you want to tune in for that, that would be great. But basically, how to take a 55-gallon plastic drum and turn it into a rain barrel to collect water and help divert it from your house to your garden or just farther away from your home. It ties right in with what we've been talking about tonight. Any other closing comments before we hang up here? All right. Thank you very much for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you again soon. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah.
Good night.